The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in floating chairs that moved silently through the air. The dome above them showed a perfect view of the stars, where countless worlds spun in the darkness of space. Ambassador Sarah Chun walked slowly toward the speaking platform. Her simple black suit looked plain next to the bright colors and strange shapes of the alien council members around her. Some had scales that changed color as they moved. Others looked like walking trees with eyes that glowed like tiny suns. A few floated in tanks filled with purple gas. Instead of sitting in chairs, Sarah had been Earth's voice in this place for 3 years. Every day, she listened to debates about trade routes, mining rights, and peace treaties between species she was still learning to tell apart. Today was different. Today, the Council would decide if humans could become full members. High Counselor Zexhai raised one of his 4 arms. The massive being looked like a cross between a dragon and a whale. His skin was deep blue, and when he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "We gathered today to discuss the humans," Zexhai announced. "For 50 of their years, we have watched their world. We have studied their behavior, their culture, and their history. The time has come to decide their place among us." Counselor Vextar of the Axiom species stood next. The Axioms looked like tall, thin humans made of silver metal. Their faces never showed emotion, and they spoke only when they had calculated the exact right words to use. "Our analysis is complete," Vextar said in a voice that sounded like a computer. "Humans show clear patterns of conflict avoidance. They create organizations to prevent war. They write poems and songs about peace. Their leaders spend most of their time trying to stop fights instead of starting them." A council member who looked like a giant spider with crystal wings clicked her approval. The Kreshti agree. "We have monitored their communications for decades. Humans constantly talk about the horrors of war. They teach their children that violence is wrong. They even have a saying, 'War is hell.'" Sarah felt her stomach tighten. They had been watching Earth, but they had completely missed the point. She wanted to speak, but the council had not given her permission yet. Ancient Counselor Mordun spoke next. The Vorthok was old beyond measure, and his people had been space travelers when humans still lived in caves. His body looked like living stone covered in glowing moss. "I have seen many species rise and fall," Mordun said slowly. "Some are born warriors, like the hegemony. Others are natural scholars, like the Kethvar. The humans are clearly pacifists. They fear conflict and seek harmony." Zexhai nodded his great head. "The evidence is clear. Humans write more poetry about peace than any species we have studied. Their greatest leaders are remembered for ending wars, not winning them. They build monuments to honor the dead instead of celebrating victories. This makes them valuable," added Counselor Yuthara of the Flowing Ones. Her body was like water given shape, always shifting and moving. "The galaxy needs mediators. We need beings who can help solve disputes without violence." Sarah could not stay quiet any longer. "Honored counselors, may I speak?" Zexhai gestured with one massive hand. "Of course, Ambassador Chun. What does humanity wish to say?" Sarah took a deep breath. "I believe there has been a misunderstanding about my people. Yes, we write about peace and build monuments to the dead. But perhaps you should look more closely at why we do these things." Vextar's silver face tilted slightly. "Please explain." "We write about peace because we know what war truly costs," Sarah said carefully. "We build monuments to the dead because we have so many dead to remember. Humans do not fear war because we are weak. We fear war because we know exactly how terrible we can be at it." The council chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Counselor Yuthara laughed, a sound like water flowing over rocks. "Ambassador, you cannot be serious. We have studied your military capabilities. Your largest weapons could barely scratch a council frigate. Your armies move slowly and rely on primitive tactics. The human homeworld has no orbital defense platforms, added Vextar. Their space fleet consists of exploration vessels and cargo ships. They pose no military threat to anyone. Sarah felt frustrated. How could beings this intelligent miss something so obvious? Counselors, you have studied our current military, but have you studied our history? Have you read about our wars? Zexai waved dismissively. Ancient history, Ambassador. You speak of your primitive past, when your people fought with crude weapons over small pieces of land. Modern humans have clearly evolved beyond such behavior. We have records of your last major conflict, said Vextar. World War II ended 80 years ago. Since then, humans have focused on exploration, art, and peaceful development. You have proven that intelligent species can move beyond their violent origins. Sarah wanted to explain that World War II had not been their last war, just their last global one. She wanted to tell them about Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf Wars, Afghanistan, and dozens of smaller conflicts. She wanted to explain that humans had spent the last 80 years not avoiding war, but learning to fight it better. Instead, she said quietly, I believe you may be surprised by what humans are capable of if pushed. Morden spoke with the patience of ages. Young Ambassador, we appreciate your concern for your people's dignity, but the Council has made its decision based on careful observation. Humans are a peaceful species with much to offer as mediators and diplomats. Zexai stood, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. The Council grants Earth full membership status with protected species designation. Human colonies will be placed under Council protection, as befits a people who have chosen peace over power. The vote was unanimous. Every species in the Council agreed that humans needed protection from the galaxy's more dangerous inhabitants. Sarah bowed formally. I thank the Council for this honor. As she walked back to her seat, Sarah wondered if she should feel grateful or worried. The Council meant well, but they had made a serious mistake about humanity's nature. Outside the great windows, the stars looked peaceful and calm. Soon, Sarah thought, someone would test the Council's assumptions about human pacifism. She just hoped the galaxy was ready for the results. 3 months after Earth joined the Galactic Council, Ambassador Sarah Chun was working late in her office when the emergency alarms began to wail. Red lights flashed throughout the Council station, and her communication screen lit up with urgent messages. The first message made her blood run cold. Emergency broadcast from Kethver Prime, the automated system announced. Colonies under attack. Requesting immediate assistance. Sarah quickly opened the communication channel. The face that appeared on her screen belonged to Scholar Yenthal, leader of the Kethver Council of Learning. His people looked like tall, thin humans with pale blue skin and large, gentle eyes. They were known throughout the galaxy as philosophers and teachers, beings who had never lifted a weapon in anger. Yenthal, as usual calm, was gone. His eyes were wide with terror, and his hand shook as he spoke. Ambassador Chun, please help us, he begged. The hegemony came without warning. They destroyed our defense satellites in minutes. Our people are dying. Behind him, Sarah could see smoke and fire through the windows. In the distance, dark ships moved across the sky like hungry vultures. How many ships do they have? Sarah asked. Hundreds, Yenthal replied. Maybe thousands. They attack civilians, destroy schools and hospitals. They take prisoners for slave labor. This is not war, Ambassador. This is slaughter. The communication cut to static as explosions rocked the Kethver capital. Sarah immediately called for an emergency council session. Within an hour, representatives from every major species gathered in the Great Hall. The usual calm debates were replaced by angry shouting and panicked discussions. Hi, Counselor HFY struggled to maintain order. The situation is clear, he announced. The hegemony has attacked the HFY without provocation. This is a violation of galactic law. Counselor Bexiran of the Zephyrian Empire stood up. His people were warriors by nature, with thick armor-like skin and weapons built into their arms. But even they seemed hesitant. The HFY colonies are in Sector 847, Bexiran said. That is outside Zephyrian space. We cannot justify the cost of intervention for worlds that offer us no strategic value. Vextar of the Axiom spoke next, his silver face showing no emotion. We have calculated the probability of success in a military intervention. The hegemony fleet outnumbers any force we could assemble by 3-1. Intervention would result in massive casualties, with minimal chance of success. The costs are too high, agreed Counselor Yithara of the Flowing Ones. We cannot risk our own people for a species that chose to remain defenseless. Ancient Morden nodded slowly. The Vorthik have seen this cycle before. The strong consume the weak. It is the natural order of the galaxy. To interfere would only delay the inevitable. Sarah listened to excuse after excuse. Every species had reasons why they could not help. Some claimed the HFY were too far away. Others said the hegemony was too dangerous. A few suggested that the HFY had brought this on themselves by refusing to build weapons. Finally, Sarah stood up. The hall fell quiet as all eyes turned to the human ambassador. The Terran Federation will respond to the HFY request for aid, she announced. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the hall erupted in shocked voices. Ambassador Chun, HFY said urgently, you must reconsider. The hegemony is one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Their ships are massive, their weapons are devastating, and their soldiers are trained from birth to kill. Your people are not warriors. The humans have no significant military fleet, Vextar added. Your largest vessels are exploration ships with minimal weapons. This action would be suicide for your species. Bexiran leaned forward, his armored face showing genuine concern. Ambassador, I respect your people's courage, but courage alone is not enough. The hegemony has conquered dozens of worlds. They will destroy Earth just to send a message to others who might oppose them. Sarah looked around the chamber at all the beings who claimed to be more advanced than humans. These species had traveled to stars for thousands of years. They had technology that seemed like magic to most humans. Yet none of them would lift a finger to stop genocide. Counselors, Sarah said calmly, I appreciate your concern for my people, but Earth has made its decision. This is madness, Yithara said, her water-like body flowing with agitation. Humans are pacifists. You have no experience with real warfare. The hegemony will exterminate you without effort. Sarah smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Counselor Yithara, you have made the same mistake as everyone else in this chamber. You have confused our desire for peace with an inability to make war. She activated her personal communication device. This is Ambassador Chun to Terra Command. Authorization Alpha 77. Execute Operation Righteous Fury. The response came immediately in Admiral Claime's gravelly voice. Acknowledged, Ambassador. The fleet is already in hyperspace. Eta to Cathford Prime, 18 hours. HFY stared at her in shock. You already have a fleet in space? But our intelligence shows no human military vessels beyond your solar system. Your intelligence, Sarah replied, has been carefully managed. You have been watching what we wanted you to watch. She turned to address the entire council. For 3 months, you have debated whether humans deserve protection from the galaxy's dangers. You have classified us as weak pacifists who need your guidance and care. Today, you will learn why humans write so many poems about peace. Vextar's emotionless voice carried a hint of confusion. "We do not understand, Ambassador." Sarah's expression grew cold. "We write about peace, Counselor, because we have seen what happens when humans go to war. We mourn our dead because we have killed so many that the numbers have lost all meaning. We fear conflict because we know exactly what we become when we stop holding back." She gathered her files and prepared to leave. In 18 hours, the hegemony will discover why Earth has been so eager to join a galactic peacekeeping organization. They will learn that the most dangerous predator is often the one that looks peaceful. As Sarah walked toward the exit, Morden called after her. "Ambassador, what if you are wrong? What if your fleet is not enough?" Sarah paused at the doorway and looked back at the ancient being. "Counselor Morden," she said quietly, "in the unlikely event that the hegemony proves more dangerous than we calculated, Earth has backup plans. We always have backup plans." She left the council chamber in chaos, with hundreds of alien voices arguing about what humans might actually be capable of. None of them would have to wait long to find out. General Korthak of the Hegemony Fourth Fleet stood on the bridge of his massive command ship, watching his forces destroy another Kethver city. The pale blue beings below offered no resistance. Their ships were built for exploration, not war. Their cities had no shields, no weapons, no defenses worth mentioning. "This is almost boring," Korthak muttered to his second-in-command. "At least most species try to fight back." The hegemony had been conquering worlds for 300 years. They were experts at breaking the will of peaceful species. Their ships were enormous, each one the size of a small city. Their weapons could crack planets. Their soldiers were bred for violence and trained from childhood to kill without mercy. Korthak was reviewing plans to attack the next Kethver world when his communications officer spoke up. "General, we are receiving a transmission from an unknown fleet." "Unknown fleet?" Korthak turned from the viewing screen. "The Kethver have no fleet. Who dares to interfere with hegemony operations? They claim to represent something called the Terran Federation, sir." Korthak laughed. He had never heard of any Terran Federation, which meant they were probably another weak species trying to look important. "Put them through," he ordered. "Let us see what these fools want." The main screen flickered, and the image of a human woman appeared. She wore a dark blue uniform with simple rank insignia. Her face was calm and professional. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Terran Federation Navy ship Indomitable. General Korthak, you are ordered to cease all hostile actions against the Kethver immediately and withdraw your forces from this system." Korthak and his bridge crew burst into laughter. The idea that any species would order the hegemony to do anything was ridiculous. The idea that this small, weak-looking creature thought she could threaten them was hilarious. "Captain Rodriguez," Korthak said between chuckles, "I suggest you take your little exploration ships and leave before we decide to add your worlds to our conquest list. The hegemony does not take orders from primitives." The human captain's expression did not change. "General, you have 5 minutes to begin withdrawing. After that, we will consider you a hostile force and act accordingly. Are you threatening us?" Korthak asked in disbelief. "Do you have any idea what you are facing? This fleet has conquered 40 worlds. Our ships outmass yours by a factor of 10. Our weapons can destroy entire cities in seconds." 4 minutes, 30 seconds, Rodriguez replied calmly. Korthak cut the transmission and ordered his tactical officer to show him the human fleet. What he saw on his screens made him pause. The human ships were small compared to his massive dreadnoughts, but there were many of them. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of fish or a flock of birds. "How many ships?" he asked. "Approximately 800 vessels, General. Most appear to be frigate or destroyer class. No ships larger than a light cruiser." Korthak relaxed. 800 small ships against his 50 massive dreadnoughts was hardly a fair fight. His ships had more firepower in their main guns than most species had in their entire fleets. "Send the message to the human fleet," he ordered. "Tell them they have one chance to surrender. If they submit now, we will only enslave them. If they fight, we will exterminate them." The response came back immediately. 2 minutes, 15 seconds. Korthak was getting annoyed. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Either way, they were about to learn what happened when anyone challenged the hegemony. "All ships, prepare for battle," he commanded. "We will make an example of these humans that the galaxy will never forget." When the 5 minutes expired, the human fleet moved. Korthak had been in hundreds of space battles. He knew what to expect. Enemy fleets usually charged forward in a straight line, trying to get close enough for their weapons to be effective. Sometimes they tried to surround his ships, but his massive dreadnoughts had weapons pointing in every direction. The humans did neither. Instead, they split into dozens of small groups and began moving in patterns that made no sense. Some groups accelerated toward his fleet, while others moved sideways or even backward. A few groups seemed to disappear entirely, only to reappear in unexpected places. What are they doing? Korthak demanded. His tactical officer studied the screens with growing confusion. "I am not sure, General. Their formation appears random, but their movements are too coordinated for randomness." The first human ships reached weapon range and opened fire. Their weapons were smaller than hegemony guns, but they fired with incredible precision. Instead of trying to destroy his massive ships with brute force, they targeted specific systems. Communication arrays, sensor clusters, weapon mounts, and engine components took precisely aimed hits. Within minutes, 3 of his dreadnoughts had lost their primary sensors. 2 more were struggling with damaged engines. His fleet's perfect coordination began to break down as ships lost contact with each other. "Return fire!" Korthak roared. "Destroy these insects." His ships fired their massive weapons, but the human vessels were no longer where his gunners expected them to be. The humans seemed to know where his shots were going before he did. They slipped away from targeting walks like shadows, appeared behind his ships when his guns were pointed forward, and vanished into asteroid fields that his sensors could not penetrate. "They are using our own debris as cover," his tactical officer reported with disbelief. "Every time we destroy one of their ships, the others use the wreckage to hide behind." But the humans were not just hiding. They were learning. Each attack was more precise than the last. They seemed to understand his ships better than his own engineers did. They knew exactly where to hit to cause the most damage with the smallest weapons. Worse, they were talking to each other constantly. While hegemony ships communicated through simple commands, the human vessels shared information at incredible speed. When one ship discovered a weakness, every ship in the fleet knew about it within seconds. "General," his second-in-command said urgently, "we have lost 16 ships. The humans have lost perhaps 30, but they still outnumber us 6-1. Korthak stared at his tactical display in growing horror. His massive, unstoppable fleet was being picked apart by tiny ships that fought like nothing he had ever seen before. "Akars," new voice spoke on his communication system. Male this time, with an accent he did not recognize. "General Korthak, this is Admiral Marcus Kane of the Terran Federation Navy. I am offering you one final chance to withdraw." "Never," Korthak snarled. "The hegemony does not retreat from primitives." "Very well," Admiral Kane replied. "Captain Rodriguez, execute Operation Prometheus." Korthak did not understand what Operation Prometheus meant, but he was about to learn. The human fleet suddenly changed tactics entirely. Instead of small groups hitting and running, they began to coordinate massive strikes using hundreds of ships at once. They had been testing his defenses, learning his weaknesses. Now they were ready to finish what they had started. The battle lasted 6 more hours. When it ended, the Hegemony 4 fleet no longer existed. Some ships had been destroyed. Others had been captured. Most had simply been disabled so completely that they could no longer fight. Korthak himself sat in the ruins of his command bridge, surrounded by sparking electronics and dead crew members. Through his cracked viewing screen, he could see human ships moving with calm efficiency, rescuing survivors and securing prisoners. Captain Rodriguez appeared on his communication screen one last time. "General," she said politely, "I hope this serves as a lesson. Humans do not start fights, but we always finish them." The transmission ended, leaving Korthak alone with the terrible realization that the Hegemony had just encountered something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Something that looked peaceful until you made the mistake of threatening what they protected. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. For 6 days, representatives from every major species had watched the reports coming from Kethver space. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare, about humans, and about the balance of power in the galaxy. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood at the main display, pointing to a 3-dimensional map that showed the battle zone. Hundreds of small lights moved across the star chart, each one representing a human ship. The Terran Federation Navy has established complete control of the Kethver system, she reported in her calm, professional voice. Hegemony forces have been neutralized with minimal casualties on both sides. High Counselor Zex High leaned forward in his floating chair. His massive form seemed smaller somehow, as if the last week had aged him greatly. "Ambassador Chun," he said carefully, "our intelligence reports are difficult to understand. The Hegemony 4th Fleet was one of their most powerful forces. How did your people defeat them so completely?" Sarah touched the display, and the image changed to show detailed battle recordings. The council members watched in fascination as human ships moved through space like dancers, each vessel perfectly coordinated with the others. The Hegemony made several critical errors, Sarah explained. First, they assumed that bigger weapons always win. Second, they believed that fear and intimidation were effective military strategies. Third, they thought that their past victories made them invincible. Counselor Vextar of the Axioms studied the recordings with his computer-like mind. The human tactics appear highly inefficient. Your ships expended tremendous amounts of fuel and ammunition to achieve results that could have been accomplished with larger weapons. Sarah smiled slightly. "Counselor, you are thinking like the Hegemony. You see only the immediate battle. Humans think in terms of campaigns, not just individual fights." She changed the display again, showing a broader view of Hegemony space. Red dots marked Hegemony strongholds, while blue dots showed human task forces. While Admiral Kane was defeating their fleet at Kethver Prime, Sarah continued, other human forces were taking action throughout Hegemony territory. We did not come here just to win one battle. The council members stared at the display in growing shock. Human forces had appeared at dozens of Hegemony worlds simultaneously, but they were not conquering these planets. Instead, they seemed to be doing something far more dangerous. "You are freeing their slaves," whispered Counselor Ythara. "Among other things," Sarah confirmed. "Every species the Hegemony has conquered in the last century is receiving weapons, training, and support. Humans have a saying, 'The enemy of my enemy is my friend.'" Ancient Morden spoke with the weight of ages in his voice. "This is not warfare. This is revolution." Sarah nodded. Humans learned long ago that the most effective way to defeat an empire is not to conquer it, but to make it fall apart from the inside. The Hegemony ruled through fear and overwhelming force. When their victims realized that the hegemony was not invincible, everything changed. She touched the display again, showing communication intercepts from across hegemony space. Dozens of worlds were in revolt. Slave populations that had been crushed for generations were rising up with human weapons and human training. Hegemony garrisons that had terrorized entire planets were suddenly facing organized resistance. "How do your people know so much about revolution?" asked Bexavern of the Zephyrians. "Because we have practiced it," Sarah replied simply. "Humans have been fighting tyrants for thousands of years. We have studied every form of warfare, from open battle to guerrilla tactics to psychological operations. We know how empires rise, and we know how they fall." Zexai was reading reports that his staff brought him. His face grew more troubled with each page. "Ambassador," he said slowly, "these reports suggest that your people have been planning this operation for months. You knew the hegemony would attack the Kethver before it happened." Sarah's expression did not change. "The hegemony has been expanding toward Kethver space for 2 years. Their pattern of conquest was easy to predict. We have been monitoring their communications, studying their tactics, and preparing countermeasures since Earth joined the Council." "You have been spying on them," Vextar accused. "We have been gathering intelligence," Sarah corrected. "There's a difference. Spying implies hidden motives. Intelligence gathering is a normal military precaution." Councillor Uthar's water-like body flowed with agitation. "Normal military precaution?" "Ambassador, your species was classified as pacifist. You claim to have no significant military capabilities." "We never claimed that," Sarah replied firmly. "We said that humans prefer peace. We said that we understand the cost of war. You chose to interpret that as weakness." She activated a new set of displays, showing Earth's industrial capacity and population statistics. "Earth has a population of 12 billion people," she continued. "Of those, approximately 800 million serve in some form of military capacity. Our industrial infrastructure can produce weapons and ships faster than most species can count them. We've been preparing for galactic conflict since we first detected radio signals from other civilizations." The numbers on the screen made the council members grow very quiet. Most civilizations had military forces that numbered in the thousands or tens of thousands. The idea of a species with nearly 1 billion soldiers was beyond their comprehension. 800 million soldiers? Baxiran asked in disbelief. "That includes reserves, support personnel, and civilian defense forces," Sarah explained. "But yes, one of the advantages of being a primitive species is that we have not forgotten that survival sometimes requires everyone to fight." Mordon spoke with deep concern in his ancient voice. "Ambassador, if humans possess such military strength, why did you not reveal it when you joined the council?" Sarah looked around the chamber at all the beings who had spent months debating whether humans needed their protection. "Because we hoped it would never be necessary," she said quietly. "Humans genuinely prefer peace, Counselor. We have seen what we become when we go to war, and it frightens us. We joined the Council hoping to find a galaxy where our weapons would not be needed." She gestured toward the displays showing the ongoing liberation of hegemony worlds. "Unfortunately, the galaxy is not as civilized as we hoped. When peaceful species like the Kethver are attacked, and when the Council chooses to do nothing, humans have no choice but to act." Zexai was reading another report, and his expression grew even more troubled. "Ambassador, our latest intelligence suggests that the human forces currently in hegemony space represent only a small fraction of your total military capacity." "That is correct," Sarah confirmed. "The forces you are seeing represent about 15% of our active fleet. The rest remains in reserve." "In reserve for what?" Vextar asked. Sarah's smile was not reassuring. in case the hegemony has allies who decide to intervene, or in case other aggressive species decide that humans are a threat that needs to be eliminated, or in case the Council itself decides that humanity's military capabilities are unacceptable. The chamber fell completely silent. The implications of what she had said were clear to everyone present. Finally, HFY spoke. "Ambassador, are you threatening the Council?" "No, Counselor," Sarah replied calmly. "I am simply explaining that humans have learned to plan for every possibility. We hope that the Council will welcome our contribution to galactic peace. But we are prepared for other outcomes." She gathered her files and prepared to leave. "The hegemony will fall within a month," she announced. "When it does, the galaxy will be a safer place for peaceful species like the HFY. Humans sincerely hope that this will be the beginning of a new era of cooperation between all civilized species." As Sarah walked toward the exit, she paused and looked back at the assembled council. "But if any species chooses to follow the hegemony's example," she added quietly, "they will learn that humans have had a very long time to perfect the art of war." The chamber remained silent long after she had gone, as the council tried to understand what they had unleashed by giving humanity a place among the stars. 4 weeks after the first human ship entered HFY space, the hegemony empire ceased to exist. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood before the Galactic Council once again, but everything had changed. The great hall that had once been filled with confident debates about human weakness now buzzed with nervous whispers about human strength. Representatives who had once pitied humanity now watched her with careful respect and barely hidden fear. "The hegemony's surrender is complete," Sarah reported to the assembled council. "Their remaining fleets have been disarmed, their slave worlds have been liberated, and their leadership has been turned over to a galactic war crimes tribunal." High Counselor HFY reviewed the official documents with trembling hands. 4 weeks ago, he had been one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Now he felt like a child who had accidentally awakened something terrible. "Ambassador Chun," he said carefully, "the speed of this victory is unprecedented. Most galactic conflicts last for decades or centuries. How did you people achieve such decisive results so quickly?" Sarah activated the main display, showing a map of what had once been hegemony space. Instead of the red markers that had indicated conquest and oppression, the display now showed dozens of green dots representing free worlds. "The hegemony made the same mistake that many empires make," she explained. "They believed that fear was strength. They thought that being hated made them powerful. But an empire built on fear is actually very fragile." She pointed to different areas of the map as she spoke. Once their victims realized that the hegemony could be defeated, everything unraveled quickly. Former slaves became freedom fighters. Conquered worlds remembered their independence. Subject species turned against their oppressors. Counselor Vexstar processed this information with his computer-like mind. The axioms calculate that coordinating so many simultaneous rebellions would require unprecedented intelligence and communication capabilities. "It would," Sarah agreed. "Fortunately, humans specialize in organization and communication. We have been fighting tyranny for so long that we know exactly how to help others do the same." Ancient Morden spoke with deep concern in his voice. "Ambassador, what happens now?" The hegemony controlled vast regions of space. Their territory included thousands of worlds and billions of beings. Who will govern them? Sarah smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it seemed genuinely warm. They will govern themselves, Counselor. Humans believe that every species has the right to choose its own path. We have helped them remove their oppressors, but we have no desire to replace one empire with another. This surprised the council members even more than the military victory had. Counselor, Uthara flowed forward in her chair. You are not claiming any territory? No tribute worlds, no strategic resources, no military bases. None, Sarah confirmed. The liberated worlds will be offered membership in the Council if they wish. Some may choose to form alliances with Earth. Others may prefer complete independence. That choice belongs to them. Bexiran of the Zephyrians leaned forward with obvious confusion. Ambassador, your people fought a war that cost tremendous resources and lives. Wars are fought for profit, territory, or power. What has humanity gained from this victory? Sarah's expression grew serious. We gain what we have always wanted, Counselor, peace. She changed the display to show shipping routes and communication networks throughout the former hegemony territory. For 300 years, the hegemony made this region of space dangerous for peaceful species. Trade was disrupted, exploration was impossible, and scientific advancement was stifled by constant warfare. Now these worlds can develop freely, trade openly, and pursue knowledge instead of survival. Zexai studied the implications of what she was saying. You fought this war to create stability, not to gain power. Exactly, Sarah replied. Humans learned long ago that we are safer in a peaceful galaxy than a violent one. We prefer to solve problems before they become wars, but when violence is necessary, we end it as quickly as possible. The council chamber fell quiet as the members considered this philosophy. Most species viewed war as a tool for advancement or defense. The idea of fighting purely to create peace was difficult for them to understand. Morden spoke with the wisdom of ages. Ambassador, your people have demonstrated military capabilities that surpass anything we have seen. What assurance do we have that humans will not become the next hegemony? Sarah had been expecting this question. Because we have been the hegemony before, and we learned better. She activated a new display showing Earth's history. Humans have built many empires over our history. We have conquered, enslaved, and oppressed each other in ways that would make the hegemony proud. But we also learned that empires always fall, and the cost of maintaining them is higher than any benefit they provide. The display showed images of human cities, human art, and human achievements. We chose a different path. Instead of building an empire, we built a federation. Instead of conquering others, we focus on improving ourselves. Instead of ruling through fear, we lead by example. She turned to face the entire council. The Galactic Council can continue as it has, debating endlessly while tyrants spread across the galaxy. Or it can become something better. Humans offer our knowledge, our resources, and our protection to any species that chooses peace over conquest. Yithara asked the question that everyone was thinking. And what happens to species that choose conquest over peace? Sarah's expression grew cold. They learn why humans write so many poems about the horrors of war. She activated one final display, showing human ships patrolling the space lanes throughout the galaxy. They were not conquest fleets or occupation forces. They were guardians, protecting trade routes and peaceful worlds from any who would threaten them. The Terran Federation is establishing permanent peacekeeping forces throughout this region of space, Sarah announced. Any species that attacks peaceful worlds will face immediate response from human forces. Zexai read through the official documents that had been transmitted to the Council. Ambassador, these patrol routes cover nearly half the galaxy. The resources required for such an operation would bankrupt most civilizations. Most civilizations do not have 12 billion citizens who prefer peace to profit, Sarah replied. Humans are willing to invest in galactic stability because we understand that the alternative is far more expensive. She gathered her materials and prepared to leave. The council has a choice to make, she said to the assembled representatives. You can work with humanity to build a peaceful galaxy, or you can continue the old ways of ignoring aggression until it becomes too powerful to stop. As she walked toward the exit, she paused and looked back at the council one last time. But understand this, Humans will no longer sit quietly while peaceful species are slaughtered by tyrants. We tried trusting the galaxy to police itself. That experiment failed. From now on, peace will be enforced. After she left, the council sat in stunned silence. Outside the great windows, human ships could be seen patrolling the space around the station. They moved with the same precision and purpose that had destroyed the hegemony. But now they were guardians instead of conquerors. High Counselor Zex finally spoke. It appears that the galaxy has new rules. Ancient Morden nodded slowly. And new enforcers. In the weeks that followed, word spread throughout the galaxy about what had happened to the hegemony. Species that had been planning their own conquests quietly abandoned those plans. Pirates and raiders found their activities suddenly very dangerous. Peaceful worlds could explore and trade without fear for the first time in generations. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of human-enforced peace had begun. And in the great library of the Kethfer homeworld, Scholar Yentl wrote the first entry in a new historical record. Today, we learned that the most dangerous species in the galaxy are not those who love war, but those who understand it so well that they are willing to fight to prevent it.